Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Huberman.
And I'm Christina McLean. Welcome to All Access. Today we have the opportunity to sit down with two leaders in the Chicago Public School District whose work focuses on supporting students with disabilities, Chief Josh Long and Principal Stephanie Anderson.
Josh Long became the Chief Officer of the Office of Diverse Learner Supports and Services for Chicago Public Schools in January 2024. As Chief Officer, he leads over 2,000 employees in their service to 52,000 students with disabilities. His past experiences include serving as the principal of Southside Occupational Academy, a transition center for students with intellectual disabilities, where he was principal for 14 years, as well as working in CPS classrooms as a speech-language pathologist. Chief Long was the recipient of the 2019 Golden Apple Leadership Award. Principal Stephanie Anderson is in her fourth year as principal of Vaughn Occupational High School, a high school on the northwest side of Chicago that serves students with intellectual disabilities. Prior to her role as principal, she was assistant principal at Vaughn from 2016 to 2020. Her previous roles include diverse learner supporter at CPS and an intervention specialist for Northern Suburban Special Education District. Principal Anderson's experience as an individual with a disability influenced her career path to go into the field of special education.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good morning and welcome. We are really looking forward to this conversation and learning about your experience working with students with disabilities as well as their families and what it's been like. Both of you have had long careers in CPS, so we are eager to hear about your insights. Chief Long, you're new in your role, and we are curious what it's been like for you moving from being principal at Southside, to your new role where you are ultimately responsible for 52,000 students with disabilities or students who have IEPs.
Yeah, it's been bittersweet, to be honest. I was at Southside Occupational Academy for 14 years. And truly loved everything that I did. I mean, every day was a gift, and to be able to walk around the hallways and see the students and interact with my teachers and paraprofessionals, there's just nothing like that energy just from being with everybody and just seeing the magic that was happening in all of the classrooms. And then transitioning to this role, I had an idea from a principal's perspective of, what the department did and what the chief did, and I guessed. And coming into this role now, and I think today's maybe about 6 weeks in, it's a lot. The work is so important, and there are so many things that I have both short-term goals for and long-term goals that, I want to change and make even better. As any leader does when they take on a new role, they have ideas for how to, move things forward, and really thinking about our students' experience, particularly those students with disabilities and their experience within not just one Chicago public school like I was as a principal, but now thinking about what that experience looks like in all of our Chicago public schools is an exciting and enormous task at the same time.
Enormous.
Yes. What do you think has surprised you the most?
That's a great question. I will say that every day is different. The meetings are never ending. And what's so exciting is just the amount of things that I'm able to give voice to. And one day I may talk to a family, I may talk to a school, and then work with some of the labor relations folks. I'm also working on the contract negotiations for our paraprofessionals. It's all with the same intent, and that's to make the experience better for students with disabilities. And so really just staying focused on that as my North Star has been. I'm happy that I can still think that way as I did as a principal, but also, like I said, just thinking about all of the different things that I'm able to bring influence to is really exciting and also very motivating at the same time.
So it's about 52,000 students in CPS with disabilities, and I had read around 2,000 or 2,500 staff members also that you oversee as part of this department. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And wow. I do not know all of their names yet.
No. Yeah, that might take you a while. But you do know the person who's sitting at the table with us today, which is
absolutely do.
Principal Anderson. And I know that I would imagine you two have worked closely over many years now. How have you collaborated in the past, and how are you now collaborating kind of moving forward? What does that look like now?
So Stephanie and I have collaborated a lot over the years in just thinking about our ideas of, what to do for students who are at the transition age and how we could, move forward with the programs that we thought would best serve their needs, looking at all students as individuals and also, looking at the reality of, the landscape of adult programming within the state of Illinois, which is bleak to say the least. We're currently 47th in the nation in terms of funding for programs for adults with disabilities. And, as the principal and in talking with Stephanie, the conversation turned often to, okay, so we know this is what's waiting for the students once they exit our schools. What can we do? And just really troubleshooting and thinking together about, what that programming would look like, but then also knowing that we have a lot of space within Chicago Public Schools for this type of programming to really look at the students in front of us in our own schools to say, what types of programs would best meet their needs, and really thinking about those communities too.
Mm-hmm. That's a benefit, I think, of such a large district, that there's the need for multiple schools that serve, students with disabilities, and especially at the adult age level, that we have, colleagues that we can collaborate with on very unique challenges that none of the other, schools within CPS might face. So instead of just going to, another principal who might be in our network or regionally located near us, the four of us, Principal Thomas, Principal Mordekokis, and two of us would, collaborate on really unique challenges, issues, problem solving, something that we might face on a daily basis that is not common in another setting. And it's great to have thought partners that, experience the same things.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned that you're the principal at Vaughn. Can you talk to us a little bit about Vaughn? Tell us a little bit about the school.
Jackie Vaughn Occupational High School is in Portage Park. We serve about 213 right now students with disabilities from age 14, so their freshman year, through adult transition age. The majority of our students are in transition programming, meaning that they have their graduation requirements met. They are solely there to receive transition services and work on those transition post-secondary outcomes. A smaller percentage, about 40%, are in our more high school programs, so students that really needed a more supportive setting in order to make progress on their IEP goals, essentially. A typical, maybe cluster program classroom was not working for them to meet their needs, so we're kind of the next level of support if needed. So typically students who come to us in those freshman years have, more complex challenges, and we pride ourselves on figuring out kind of unique programs for those students, because typically the families are coming to us not happy with their child's progress, in CPS. And they've typically been in multiple settings at this point, multiple schools, multiple programs. And we really try to honor each student's unique abilities and help to get them where they need to be so that they can be the most independent as possible.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Christina and I have both had an opportunity to visit Southside as well as Vaughn. I was so struck by how intentionally the school is set up, how the programs are designed, how everything seems very thoughtfully planned in place for students so that they can have the best experience as possible and be as engaged as possible. For example, different signs that are hung in different classrooms. Let's say if one is focused around like a cafe or kind of like the kitchen area in the back of a restaurant, or there was an area that was one of the classrooms kind of like a pet store might be. And so it's really like modeled to simulate that environment. And so I'm just curious, like, if you can talk a little bit about how the schools are set up and how that curriculum is kind of carried out in that way in the classrooms. Because for both of us, it just really seemed so thoughtful. It made so much sense, but I'm just curious to hear from each of you about that.
So speaking for Southside Occupational Academy, and I'm sure there'll be some similarities with what Stephanie would have to share, when you think about the learning for transition age youth, there's a lot of commercially available products, and looking at those, the thing that, and we started with that. We thought, okay, well, let's find the curriculum that's going to define what we're doing here at Southside, and this is quite a while ago. But as we looked through everything, we realized that there were pieces of it that worked, but really a lot of it that didn't really make sense for our population. And so we really thought, well, what do we know? Well, we know what's in front of us, and we know the needs of our students. And when we looked at the needs of our students and we looked around our school, we really just saw an opportunity. 14 years ago, there were no learning labs. There were no spaces that were completely dedicated to the students and using the environment to teach them. And so over 14 years, we completely transformed the school to really make the school environment be a replication of what they would encounter within the community, which allowed us to really practice the model of, let's use classroom time to teach explicit skills that we think students will need to be successful as adults, and then think about how we can mirror some of those experiences within the school community, while also then creating learning opportunities within the community that would have the students be able to exhibit those skills that they learned perhaps the previous year in the classroom. And so really it was more of a backwards chaining thing where we looked at what happens in the community and what do they need to know and how can we teach it in a forward path for the students. Mm-hmm. All the while thinking of the reality that every student learns at their own rate. Every student has individual needs and an individual education plan. And so really needing to focus on empowering the educators too with different evidence-based practices that they could use in order to teach all of our students. And when I say all of our students, we also had the idea that we really wanted to open up the building to anyone and everyone who could possibly benefit from being educated in our school. And so we really, tried to spread the spectrum as wide as possible because our world is an integrated place. And, our schools are the last stop for students to have such an organized education. And, we have to get them ready. And that's a big responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would echo a lot of the things that Josh said. Vaughn, historically has had a really strong culinary program. And that was one of the main focus areas would be, I would say, not just the cooking aspect, the behind the scenes work, but also front of the house hospitality. We have a cafe that looks like a small Starbucks or something like that counter in our school, and our students learn customer service. Obviously, they're learning the skills of making a coffee, a latte, a tea, things like that, that I'm sure you guys enjoyed when you were there.
Yes.
But they are also learning, I ran out of change in my register. Now, what do I need to do? Those problem-solving moments that are really hard to replicate in the classroom, we have kind of live opportunities to do that and practice those skills, which often the soft skills are the things that our students might struggle with the most. It's not every student's goal to be competitively employed, but we would like every student to have the skills to volunteer or participate in their community, whatever that's going to look like, based on their family and their goals.
Yeah, I know the commissioner and I had the opportunity to come to Thanksgiving, and it was delicious, and we had a great time there. So it was so great to see the students in action.
That event, started out with maybe 2 community partners. So when I was an assistant principal, our old principal, Noel McNally, was there. He really saw the need for building our community partners up. We had a few that were longstanding. There's a Walgreens down the road, a couple that were in place. And we needed to expand those opportunities. So we started having an event that would be student plan, student run, practicing some of their soft skills, that they would use in adulthood. And it's very beneficial because it's an instructional tool for us. However, it's really thanking those community partners for investing in our students and providing, whether it's a once a month job shadow or a weekly internship. Some have expanded dramatically since we started with them. And I'm sure you saw when you came, that's grown from, approximately 2 partners to, a full auditorium of people that are really committed to supporting our students.
So I'm curious, you both are aware that in 2022, MOPD launched our Career Center focused on helping individuals with disabilities find employment. What does that mean to you as, CPS, working with students so closely and having to see that, once they graduate, you as a principal or chief, no longer have the ability to really support them as much? What does that mean that there is a city department now focused on helping individuals with disabilities find jobs?
I think it's amazing. Having one more service once our students age out of the system of schools is amazing. I think that having some sort of, and obviously we all work together so closely that having a continuum where we can refer families to you guys is just something that was much needed, I think.
Agreed. A lot of people in Illinois with children with disabilities will often say that their children approach a cliff at the age of 22 when they graduate from public school. They've had this really supportive system of early intervention from 0 to 3. Then they transition into the public school, and they have services that on a daily basis that build up their children all the way through that year in which they turn 22. And then what? And what often happens is that, families will say they're not really ready for the, daily things that their children need. And so to have yet another resource within the city where you all can stand up and say, we're here to assist this population and to, support them in their employment efforts is amazing.
Mm-hmm. And what kinds of supports are in place for when you talk about like those kinds of situations? And even if an employer is supportive, they only may have a certain amount of bandwidth to provide a lot of this kind of daily support. Have you seen things that are in place with employment, or have you seen like successful models that have really worked for students?
Yes,
or for folks who've graduated?
Right,
but yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
The handoff from the support we would provide as, an educational institution to no support sometimes is abrupt. And I think the things we've seen work are when there is some sort of job coaching in place after the student has left us. They really won't need much of that support because they will know the environment. They'll kind of have problem solve some of those things. That's what's been most successful for our students who've maintained employment, is that they have either an outside job coach and or a family member, some sort of liaison between them and the workplace.
And I would just add that, your question of have we seen models that worked, in terms of consistency, in our state, absolutely not. There are not consistent models where you could say that this is the way it happens for all people who have experiences with the system. The ideal world would be, and this happens in other states, where there's wraparound services. So a student would exit the public school and they would, go right into the adult service world. And, in our example of those students who would perhaps have competitive employment, or those graduates, there would be ongoing job coaching, and that person would have supports, and they may have a model where it's more intensive supports at the beginning, and then they would fade over time and then be there when they were needed. There's also relationships with employers that do happen, and we are both successful in setting those up through the internships that we have, where you have people who are boots on the ground, and they are, in a sense, the colleagues, but also the mentors to our students. And so we've also seen when our students graduate and then go on to be hired, and these are not huge numbers, but, every number counts. But we have individuals who would then be hired by the same place that we have the internship, and that person is still their mentor. So that person is still helping them, or, making sure to reinforce concepts or anticipating misunderstanding. It's those little things that really helps our students be successful in the employment realm. But in terms of, do we have a unified system where we are, supporting all individuals with disabilities? In my humble opinion, I would say no, we don't, not at this time.
Mm-hmm. And I think we talked about too once that travel training is another important skill for those graduating to have Would you agree that that's
yeah.
another important?
I mean, definitely transportation in general is a huge barrier to employment for our students, for many people. But I think that travel training refers to, if we're teaching a student typically how to take the CTA here in Chicago to get to and from their house to school or their house to their job.
And we're so fortunate in the city of Chicago to have such a robust system of public transportation. And, speaking from experience as the principal at Southside Occupational Academy, we didn't really do a great job of exposing our students to public transportation in the first few years. Our first location is in Inglewood, and, it was taking a really long time to, we'd have only one bus, and so trying to figure out how we could use that one CTA bus at the stop 3 blocks away to teach our students and then go someplace else in the city logistically was really difficult, and it was taking a very long time to actually move that many students. And so as we thought more about it, what we realized is that what we needed was a new location. And so we were able to expand to the Bronzeville neighborhood. And what was great is I was able to work with CPS leaders to look at empty buildings or semi-empty buildings and what I was looking for was something close to quite a few buses. And so when we picked the Bronzeville location, we designed our program that students would spend both Monday and Friday in school receiving daily instruction from 7 different teachers, but then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, with the assistance of the paraprofessional and the teacher, every student in the building, so 150 students, would go out to the State Street stop and get on the bus and then use public transportation to access all of their internships across the city. And, just over time, the skills really grew to the point where, when you would walk into a classroom before the students were getting ready to leave, the CTA travel tracker was on the smartboard, and students also had it on the phone. And, we were able to show them, okay, like what route should we take? What time will we get there? What's the best one? And teachers would actually do planned sabotage where they say, oh, the 29's not working today, so we have to take the 4, but the 4 Express is the only thing that's running right now. And, it was really great opportunities.
Aside from any type of economic benefit, what are the ways in which employers and employees at companies and organizations benefit from working alongside people with disabilities?
It benefits everyone. I have a very diverse workforce in my building, and every person brings their unique experiences and vision and background into that. It just improves the work environment, the culture, the mission of whatever that organization is.
And for the employee with a disability, so our students, our graduates, they're gaining purpose in contrast to the ones who are sitting at home and, parents will tell us they have a sedentary lifestyle, they're just kind of hanging out and kind of just watching TV and staying at the house. And so if you compare that to being gainfully employed and being able to go out and make relationships, being social, having a purpose, I mean, we could go on and on about those benefits. When you talk about the Career Center and having relationships with the potential employers, when you're having that conversation and navigating it, sometimes it can feel like a big ask, I'm sure. It's like, hey, would you consider? And by the way, but what we have found is that the conversations to the people at the top are typically positive and affirmative, like, yes, let's do it. The conversations as you work through the organization is less about will you, because they will, but more about how do we. And that was the part where we really tried to work with those employers and those employees who were directly supporting our students. And those were the employees who would talk to us endlessly about the value added, not only to their lives, but to their workday. Take, for example, someone who is in environmental services at University of Chicago Hospital. Their job entailed going around, making sure that the bathrooms were clean for the customers. Well, now we've added another layer. They are mentoring, they are training, they are teaching an individual with a disability. And they've told us firsthand, I feel better about myself. I have more purpose in my life. I am now working with somebody and mentoring them and knowing that I'm making a difference and actually being able to see that they're making a difference and having an amazing impact and just a really deep relationship. And now that's the part that you'll hear about from these organizations, and people all the way to the top will say, we're better because of them.
Well, I think as we wrap up our conversation, what we like to ask our guests is, what would you tell someone who is interested in going into the education field?
I would say we need you. We need people who are really dedicated to making a difference. And I think it is still a field that you will experience something new every day and a lot of big wins. And it's very rewarding in terms of the impact you can make on a daily basis, but also the relationships you make with families and students that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah, similarly, I would say thank you. And, I think there's a lot to be said for the field of education for a couple of reasons. One, just because of the endless opportunities that exist. And so while you may start out as a teacher or a speech pathologist, as I did, you don't know where life is going to take you. And especially working in such a large district, there are endless opportunities to really pursue your own passion and dreams within the field. Two, I would say, it's so rewarding, and I have found, to be in this field. When you think about, and I talk to people about this who are, going into the field, so perhaps students, and say, this is not the same as a business, like making T-shirts or cooking food or working in a restaurant. This is an industry of humans, and, your life is going to be dedicated to these individuals, and we have the privilege of working with individuals with disabilities. And, there's just so much passion and reward, as Stephanie said, that and it's not daily you're standing around saying, I feel great today, or I feel so rewarded, but it's just something that is baked into the experience that, you are there to make somebody's life better. And some days that feels really heavy, and some days you're able to see a few of those rewards and those wins because you see the skills that they gained. It's a field that we need people, and we need the people to be passionate about what they're going to be doing.
What do you enjoy doing outside of work?
Go ahead.
Well, that's a really interesting question. You're right.
Okay, listen. We asked the mayor this question as well, okay?
Yes.
No, what do we know? We asked him what
him,
he wanted to be when he grew up.
What did he want to be when he grew
love
up?
that one.
What are his favorite foods?
So fun.
So anyway, just to kind of lighten things up.
No,
a bit.
fair.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
Pick one of those questions.
yeah.
Yeah, I could do the outside of work. That's fine.
Okay.
I love spending time with my family and really just being home and everything that comes with that. So the times we get to go on vacation together are wonderful, and even just cooking and sitting down for a meal together. It's nice to be able to have some space away from just the challenges and the ever-turning thoughts about what we want to do next with the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I can't say that I don't like spending time with my family.
No, you can't.
You can say it.
I'm just kidding. No, I love that. I mean, and I would, the day-to-day is a little harder for me. I enjoy sitting down, for dinner with my family. Almost nightly we do that. But always in the back of my mind is, we got that meeting tomorrow with this family. Does this student have this transportation glitch worked out? I've got an observation that has to be rescheduled. Like, it's always, you're kind of always on. And so for me, the best times are when we get to travel, because once I can actually physically remove myself from the environment,
Sure.
I can actually connect with my, I'm just more present, with my family. So traveling, I would say, is my main hobby. Also concerts, sports. I'm from Detroit, so I shouldn't probably talk about sports on this.
No, you can talk about sports.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
I'm a huge Red Wings fan, so
You
that
are?
is my main sports team. And, I'll travel to see them play in other places.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Lauren's from Michigan.
Yeah, I'm from Ann Arbor.
So you get it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's interesting because, you both have big jobs and you have important jobs. And like you said, you really impact students' lives and their families and communities. And so it's like, how do you kind of disconnect and also connect with other areas of your life and with other people? And something that I always think about too is like, how do you sleep at night? Like, how do you kind of turn that off and just, again, knowing that you have a big job. And so how do you just kind of find that space for yourself as well? So.
Well, age and experience helps. I'm better at that now than
Me
I
too.
than
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
when I was
getting
younger.
there. Yes, I'm getting there.
Well, thank you both for being here with us today.
Thank you.
We have really enjoyed
Yes.
this. Thanks for taking time out and for sharing your perspectives and experiences, and also, your advice and wisdom for someone who wants to go into this field, and also for the time that you have put into this important work and working with students and families and communities. So, we love that we get to collaborate with you as well, and we look forward to hosting students at our Career Center really anytime. We've started to do that more frequently, and folks have just kind of reached out to us, and we'll schedule time and take students around the center and meet with our career counselors, and that's something that we really enjoy doing as well.
We also look forward to having a youth event in April centered around summer jobs. So we will be reaching out to you both more about that.
That's great. Thank you guys. Thanks for having us, and
Yeah.
thanks for all the work you're doing with the Career Center. And I think more and more of our students will be accessing that.
Great.
Yeah. And thank you for your partnership. I mean, to have MOPD on board to look at, how can we support individuals with disabilities across the city, no matter what disability they have, is just a really comforting fact for our population.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks all for tuning in to this episode of All Access. Special thanks to our executive producer, Commissioner Rachel Arfa, as well as our guests, Chief Long and Principal Stephanie Anderson. We also want to thank the City of Chicago's production team, as well as our American Sign Language interpreters who are helping to make this podcast accessible. Be sure to tune in next month for another episode of All Access.